Hello. Um, so I have been the critic saying stop talking so much and let's do some stuff because I believe that's important. Um, we have been talking for years, and for some people, that is all this is talk. Um, if that's what you're here for, that's not what I'm here for. That's not who I am. That's not what I'm doing in the world. That's not what I want to do in the world. Um, and I recognize that for a very large number of people, and that, it gets down to the numbers, right? Um, the whole question becomes, what are the numbers? What of this little corner, or whatever you want to call it? And the real fact is, what are you trying to talk about? What are you trying to do? What is this thing? And for me, what should be obvious is this little corner is the people who I have gotten to know, um, most of whom I consider my friends. Hey, Tayo. um, Tayo came to my home. Tayo was sitting in this chair. Tayo left his shoes in my closet. Um, so when your Shalom, Rabbi Yechezkel, um, so when we talk about what this is, you can call it whatever you want, but it's what um, led Tayo to come sleep in my bed. I wasn't there at the time, just in case anybody was wondering. Um, and the 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 most wonderful thing for me was that last night in Chino, when a bunch of people came and stayed overnight near me. So that let me sorry about that. Okay. The numbers are larger than 500. That's for sure. But what I was saying is, that night there were so many people in my tiny apartment. There were like 8 people in my tiny apartment that I literally didn't have space on the floor to to. I mean, I almost went and slept on the kitchen floor, um, and that was beautiful, and that was I was happy about that, and I continue to be happy about that. And I hope for a repeat. Um, the fact people have come to visit me in Los Angeles, and that I have gone to visit people, my road trips were real, and there was a reason for the road trips. One of the things that I have eternally said about um, my YouTube channel is, my goal is always that I spend more time with the people um, in this, whatever it is. Peterson sphere is actually probably, Father Eric has the right of it. That I spend more time with them offline than I do online, or at the very least off YouTube, right? And so, and if somebody wants to jump on, I mean, the links are right there. Having somebody to actually discuss this is would be nice. The Last Homely House. I am not sure who that is, but hello. Um, yeah, the idea that the numbers are 500 is just so delusional. Um, so absolutely delusional. I mean, if you just take the people who went to Chino, Chicago, Thunder Bay, and Germany, and yeah, not even. Um, oh, it's Emma. Hello, Emma. Um, yeah, it would be great for you to jump in, Emma. You have homework. Honestly, I have work to do too. And I have to say, this is one of my complaints about the way so many people want to define this little corner, which is people who spend inordinate amounts of time on YouTube and online. If that's what this defines us, then we are excluding all of the people that I want to most include in this little corner, which are people who have children and who have jobs and who have a real life, right? Um, um, Yeah, no idea, no idea what's going on, Emma. But and for me, the greatest. I mean, I I'm I went back to school. I changed. I am in the middle of changing careers. Um, Emma says the people who have children issue is a real problem. I want to meet everyone's wives, but they can't come to things. Um, the one of the series that I did, which I thought was some of the best work on my channel, was to discuss things. Um, was to discuss things with couples as couples. I did some interviews with couples as couples. So I had Chris and his wife, Chris Picow, which too many people probably don't count as part of this. Like, if you start merely doing the names of the people who are involved in this little corner, like, start a list. That list is easily going to be thousands of people. There is no question whatsoever that there are thousands of people involved in this little corner. The very idea that it is in the hundreds is just so delusional, and in a we're trying to. I don't even know what to say. Yay! We're back to Emma. But somebody asked, so what are you doing? And what I am doing is Fountain of Comfort. That's what I'm doing. And my hope is that the fact is, despite what some people may think, Fountain of Comfort has actually already, in a very real sense, become a real thing. Because at least on my Discord server, we have a situation where if a member of the Discord is not well or is missing or is hard to find, uh, we pay attention to that. Hello, Emma.
Hi. I will join for like half an hour, and then I will go do homework.
Okay, so tell you what, in 45 minutes, I'm ending the stream because I have
Sounds
to go do
good.
stuff too.
Sounds
Because enough talking, let's get some stuff done.
Yes, exactly.
So Mark is in the comments. What you count has more to do with what you want. If you want estuary started because that is your mission, then it's hundreds at best. Yeah, honestly, I have very little interest in estuaries at all. I have been driving. I have driven many hours to get to estuaries. I have spent many hours at estuaries, but that's because I believe that Paul, as a leader, should be given the leeway to lead. And so I have been supportive of his efforts. And I continue to try to be a supportive of his efforts as best I can. Why the last homely house?
It's what I picked for the name of my YouTube channel that I'm sort of trying to get rolling because it's one of the names for Rivendell in Lord of the Rings. And Rivendell is a place of stories and conversation and comfort. It's the last homely house east of the sea.
Mm-hmm.
And so it felt like it fit for what I wanted my channel to do.
Okay. I see. We have Tayo. Hello, Tayo.
Hey,
Hi,
Tayo.
Jim. Hi, Emma. Yeah, I came up and started the estuary slander, so as an elf.
Slander? I mean, they can't. Okay, how many estuary leaders have been trained? Hundreds already?
Yeah, probably.
And so each of those estuaries must have had at least 5.
I don't know what percentage of estuary leaders that have been trained have actually started estuaries.
Yeah. Why does everyone read, I don't care about that, but I support it as slander? Yeah, he's right.
Oh, Mark.
Okay, Tayo, what do you have to say about all this?
I agree with what you were saying until you started the estuary slander.
Yeah, what was the slander of estuary?
I think, but I do agree with what Mark said about it depends on what you're counting as TLC will determine the number. So if your TLC is the people that are into the estuary project, 500 sounds about right. And if your TLC are people that you've met, you've got a different number. If the TLC is Peterson's Fair, then that's thousands of people.
Hundreds of thousands of people.
Exactly. So
which is how I don't define it as Peterson fans because not every Peterson fan knows who Jonathan Pageau, John Vervaeke, and Paul Vanderklay are. But I think anybody who is aware enough of those 3 names to actually be able to like even describe them, that should be somebody who is in this little corner.
Yeah, I think this conversation's about defining what this little corner Peterson's Fair is. It gets boring after all because obviously we're not going to agree. We've got different algorithms still. We've got similarity in our algorithm, but algorithm is still different, and a lot of this has to do with your algorithm and what you're paying attention to. So I think it's silly to try to find, dogmatic unity in that conversation. But I do agree with action, and I agree with your assessment of the people that you've met and the people that you've connected with, not just on YouTube, on just chatting streams, and not necessarily people that you've met in real life, but people that you've connected with offline in such a way are people that goes off the internet thing. It's no longer Peter's fair. These are now friends that you've made online, and I think that's fine.
Yeah, yeah. And frankly, for me, it's about the people who, if something were to happen to one of them, I would be like, what happened to this person? Like, if somebody disappears, right? My question becomes, like, where did that person go? And if someone is part of our community enough that we will miss them, that is.
Sorry, Jacob. I just started reading the comments. What's Mark going off? Let me just address a couple of things. Firstly, the slander thing's a joke, Mark. Just don't take everything so literally. Like,
yeah, he does take things very literally. Yes.
Yeah. So sorry, Jacob.
It's quite all right. No, I mean, I do think there is a subtext which people don't really want to talk about, which in my classic sense I will talk about because people don't want to talk about it, which is that I think for many people in this little corner, including Paul Vanderklay, and maybe to a lesser extent Pajot, this is about evangelism. This is about making more Christians.
Shocked. The Christians want to make more Christians.
I'm not shocked, but Paul seems to have this idea that he's being sneaky about it and Jesus smuggling, and it's like, Paul, you're not smuggling anything.
Rough draft. It's difficult to smuggle it when you've got your sermons. You test out your sermons with.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
why does he at the same time he keeps on insisting he's being foxy? Like, that's his own perception of himself, is that he's being sneaky and foxy, and it's like, no, you're not. And why do you think that you are?
He's being winsome, but he's not being sneaky. That's the
winsome. Okay, so that's another thing about being winsome. If by winsome you mean being kind and nice to people, I like to think that I'm kind and nice to people.
You are very kind and nice to people.
If by winsome you mean lying to people and deceiving them, and then I would like to not.
I would say by winsome it means not pushing every access of someone, even though you might be aware of the access that those buttons are there. So if someone's got a clear blind spot that you can see, you don't feel responsible to always have to say, yeah, that's your blind spot, that's your blind spot. It's like, okay, let's winsomely try guide you to see your blind spot without points, because that's, if you just tell someone that's your blind spot, they react differently depending on the temperament.
Okay, so don't be mean to people.
Not just don't be mean to people. Don't be mean to people.
Okay. I like to think that's just plain society. Like, that's just being sociable, is don't be mean to people.
Yeah, I think, but the spectrum, like my temperament for meanings will be different to yours.
Winsome to Trinitarianism. I mean, what can I do? It's polytheism.
That's your approach, and I think both are fine. Your approach is my friend is talking bullshit and I don't like my friend talking bullshit, so I'm going to tell them they're talking bullshit.
No, hold on. Okay, it's not. I have never walked into a Trinitarian church wearing a shirt.
Your friend, Jacob, your friend.
What about my friend? No,
I mean that if you've got if it's someone you consider your friend, you're able to. It's not going to be just walking into a random church and spewing that that's not you. But if your friend's got a position that you disagree with, you're going to have that because that's your friend. That's what you do.
I don't know. He's pretty chill when he comes on Sunday night live streams that are all about Catholicism.
Like I have Trinitarian friends. I don't constantly say to them, Trinitarian, Trinitarian, Trinitarian.
No, but I only know you through your channel, and of course on your channel you'd be more.
Well, my channel is a Jewish channel where we discuss Judaism.
Exactly. So in that context.
Well, then I have to say, let's stop being all about YouTube again.
Emma, what do you think the difference is between Jacob on Father Eric's channel and Jacob, as I've painted them everywhere else, as this monster?
It's not a monster. I think Jacob on Jacob's channel is very direct because it is about him. It's his space, and he properly understands the difference between controlling the discussion in your own space and going into someone else's space to have a discussion.
Jacob, she almost said that you're socialized. It sounds like Emma's claiming.
He knows how to be civil.
Wow, civil society! What an innovation! Civilization. I'm all for civilization. Everybody's looking at the comments, wondering
Yes.
why. Okay, Mark, if you want to jump on, you can jump on, Mark. You know. And unlike
Yeah, Mark, explain the difference between Father Eric and Pastor Paul.
and unlike Father Eric, I would be able to make it possible for other people than Mark to speak on my channel without Mark dominating everything. Socialized, I have my doubts. Civil, mostly. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a reason why I'm alone in the world. I have my cat and my dog. My cat and my dog like me.
Are they socialized?
Yeah, they're actually pretty good. Yeah. No, Mark, you know what? Yeah, I mean, you're loud and upfront, and I don't know if, I mean, there's a reason why I'm not active on your channel, and why you're not somebody I promote in my community, because I have a lot of real disagreements with you, and yeah, we have real disagreements, but Mark is somebody that I can tolerate and respect, and at a distance, and have a society where, okay, we can be civil with each other, right? While understanding that we're different people with different likes, different dislikes, and interact in a civil manner.
It's easier to do that online.
Is it?
I actually think it's more difficult to do that online than it is in real life. I think when you're physically in the same room with someone, it's actually a lot easier for people to be civil.
Yeah. More signals. Way more signals. Plus, we have well-defined rules.
I mean, in the context of the way, I don't think Mark would be as confrontational in real life. But if you're,
he's pretty close.
I'm the same everywhere. Like, I don't understand.
He's a little bit chiller because not every. Yeah. Like, we were on the Arkansas retreat together, and he's a little chiller because not 24/7 is a hardcore intellectual conversation. Some of it is just like, wow, this breakfast is really good. But he's not that different.
That's a good point as to why it would be easier in real life. Is you don't just focus on one subject and have to speak on that for 3 hours. At some point, just talk about the weather.
But you have more.
That's actually
more
part of my
signal.
problem. I don't do small talk very much in real life.
Small talk's boring.
But when I went to DC, so I was at DC, to see Father Eric, and also they had a little conference, right? So it's like, oh, two birds with one stone. I was on my way back from New England. It was perfect. So I stopped at DC. I didn't say anything to Nate. I was off talking to Vanderklay and a couple of other people. And Nate just walked over and hadn't said anything to Nate. Anything. I mean, I knew he was there, but he was engaged in conversation. I wanted to say hi to the people I knew, right? And Nate just comes over and he goes, "Oh, I see how you are now. You're just a Massachusetts guy." And I was like, I don't know that I ever portrayed myself any other way, but okay. And that was it. And then the next day he made he didn't make it. He said it was leftovers. If those were Nate's leftovers, I'm not worthy of having his freshly cooked food. Let me tell you, it was delicious lunch. We had a delicious lunch with Nate. But like that's the thing. I mean, I think people, when you're not in person, all the signals that you have are not there, and you fill them in. And you're going to fill them in. Some people are very negative, and they're going to fill them in with whatever darkness is in their heart. And they're going to see that out in the world. And some people are very positive, and they're going to fill it in that way, right? And that affects how you see that person from online. And that is a big factor, right? And then sometimes it can adjust. Like obviously Nate realized I'm not that confrontational at all. At the end of the day, right? It's like, oh, you're just from the Northeast, right? Like Pastor Paul, and Pastor Paul talked about this in our first conversation, right? People were like, "Oh, you kept interrupting him, and he kept interrupting you," and that was lightweight stuff for us. We're from the Northeast. Interruption is the proper form of communication up there. Like, and he was like, "No, that's because we know our styles." I mean, I had talked to Paul many, many times before I did my first video with him. So, he understood, and I understood how that works. And I'm poking fun at him for doing it to me, and he's poking fun at me for doing it to him, and whatever. It was fine. But if you don't know that, and fair, like if you're not from the Northeast or you haven't been there, you wouldn't know that, right? Like fair. Like it looks a lot more confrontational than it is really just play. Like at the end, it's really just play.
Tayo, you spent several days with me. Like, how many times did I call Trinitarianism polytheism while we were walking around the park?
Every second.
Every 5 minutes.
No, Jacob is such a sweet. He's such a teddy bear in real life. He really is, and that's why real life friendship is more important than online interaction.
And so, I mean, okay, let's go back to Estuary. As I see Estuary, it's a Protestant Bible study with no Bible, which is the only thing that redeems a Protestant Bible study in my eyes, is the Bible.
See,
Expand
you were
on
civil
that.
right up until that point, Jacob, and then you're like, I'm going to tip over the apple cart anyway, even though I don't have to. Good job. This is why I like you, Jacob. That was good.
I mean, that is how I view Estuary. Like,
Okay, but
I've gone. It's been a Protestant Bible study with no Bible.
what's your problem with Protestant Bible studies?
They don't study the Bible well enough, and they don't have a hierarchy of people who actually know their Bible. Like they often do. They actually have a leader, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're actually very, very regimented, but they pretend they don't have a leader.
Right. That's what I don't
Right.
like. I don't like that's the abdication
So-
of responsibility.
Wait, are we still talking about Protestant Bible study or Estuaries?
Yes. What's the difference?
Protestant. So, Bible study versus book club versus conversation.
Good framing.
Is there a difference? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Bible study versus book club, what book you're studying is different.
But conversation covers a range of things, from debate, right, to speech, right? I mean, Peterson talks about
True.
this, right? And so, yeah, conversation's a very slippery term, and we tend to kind of reduce it to one thing. But I mean, and Vervaeke talks a lot about this in his work. I mean, I would expect you to know him. You'd have to listen to hundreds of hours of him, but like he talks about the difference between like a book and then a really deep book, right? And he makes that. I think his distinction is right. Like I'm not crapping on it. I think John's right about a lot of things.
I think he talked about that when he introduced Lectio Divina.
Yeah,
somewhere in Awakening from the Meaning Crisis.
Right, but it's that you can keep going back to, right? And he does make that differentiation. I think differentiation is correct. I think there's more levels than two, right? Like there's way more, right? But at least two, I think, is helpful, right? And that's important. And so what your book club is on matters, but also, like, I mean, if you do a book club on Plato's Republic and you don't have somebody with at least very high reading comprehension who hasn't read it 1,000 times before, the odds that you're going to get the right things out of it. So you're going to get this is always the trick, right? Something's going to emerge from reading Plato's Republic, right? Something, and probably lots of things, and like it should, that's true. But what are you going to take away from that? Because if what you take away, well, if what you take away is that Plato's cave is about you emerging from the cave and going to the sunlight, you didn't read the book at all. You missed the entire point of that entire book 7. Like, you might as well not have read it, because now you have poisonous ideas in your head that are actually counter to the whole point of the parable. The parable is designed to tell you the opposite. It is not an individualistic triumph at all.
Okay, so
like, that matters.
You think you're ever going to get bored of this example? Or will you just keep coming back to it for another 3 months?
It's too easy. It's too easy for everyone to see, because of the Matrix and because of the parallel between the Matrix and Plato's cave. And like, I mean, this is actually one of the core key problems in society with respect to the intellectual class or the budding intellectual class or the wannabe intellectual class, however you want to talk about it, because it's everywhere. And it was everywhere with the release of the Matrix. That theme, which is denied by Plato, has infected culture since at least the Matrix.
Mark, that sounds to me like an argument for why the difference between a book and a really deep book. And are you saying that maps onto the difference between Bible study and a book club?
No, I'm saying that those two things are great, and there's nothing wrong with either. But I'm more making Jacob's point about the responsibility of leadership and having expertise around, because things will emerge in those environments. Now, look, you could make the argument that, like, and maybe this is a bad argument, but like Harry Potter's not a deep text in the way that Plato's Republic's a deep text. Maybe I don't know. I don't want to get into that argument. But if you made an argument like that, reading Harry Potter, things are going to emerge, right? And reading Plato, things are going to emerge. The question is, are they good? Right? Like, because again, lots of things can emerge, and who's managing that and keeping people on the straight and narrow, or is every conversation gospel? Right? Because I've heard that comment and I was like, every conversation is gospel? Wow. Now you can't question it. I don't think that's a good way to run a culture, personally.
I wonder if you took that metaphor the way they meant that metaphor.
It wasn't a metaphor.
Okay, so
I got timestamps, Emma. Okay. I can show them to you.
Okay.
Send me the timestamps. I'm interested.
In an actual Protestant Bible study, right? And this was one of the most surprising things I ever discovered about Christianity. In an actual Protestant Bible study, people are afraid they will say something wrong and they will get excommunicated.
I don't know about the excommunicated part.
I do feel like that's going to depend on the church.
If you start questioning the Trinity, you may find yourself without a church. And you certainly will not be leading that Bible study anymore. Right? And despite the fact that, so Amorda said, PBK is subtly trying to get people back into Trinitarian Christian churches in a non-confrontational winsome way that stands out as different from most overt Christian YouTube channels. And if that is what you are trying to do, so in Israel, a lot of, Christians are, especially Protestants, are constantly trying to convert Jews to Christianity. And one of the ways they thought they would do this is by having churches that don't talk about the Trinity, but are Trinitarian. And then they become very surprised that after people convert and become part of their church, which never spoke about the Trinity, and then they hear about the Trinity, they're like, hold on here. I don't like this.
I didn't sign up for this.
I did not sign up for this.
Right.
Exactly. Right? So this idea that you are going to, and people have this boil the frog idea, metaphor that I'm sure all of you have heard. And what I love about that boil the frog metaphor is people have actually tried boiling frogs, and they have found out that no matter how slowly you raise the temperature, the frog jumps out at the exact same temperature every time.
Yeah, it's wrong. The whole thing's
mean,
a lie.
That makes sense, just thinking about it logically.
Once you hit that temperature, no matter how slowly you inched up that temperature, the frog jumps out at the same temperature.
I imagine I would do that too.
And so this idea of like edging into, like, there's a border there, there's a line there, right? And that doesn't mean that slippery slopes haven't happened and people haven't found themselves in a church. Many Jews, unfortunately, have found themselves in a Trinitarian church and been like, oh, this is what I signed up for? I didn't realize this is what I signed up for, which is a problem, right? Not if the frog is drunk.
This is why Jason's the best.
But when it comes down to it, look, I think the problem really is that Protestantism is having to deal with all of its problems that it doesn't want to deal with. And okay, that's your problem. I don't necessarily want to get involved in that, but that's not what I'm doing here. I'm not here on a foxy mission to try to convert people to Christianity. I'm here because I want to have honest conversations with people who want to have honest conversations and let the chips fall where they may. If one of the Orthodox Jews in my community converts to Christianity, that's not going to make me think that, oh, I must have done something wrong.
Sounds like an estuary that you're describing.
What sounds like that?
Let people have honest conversation and let the chip fall where they may. That sounds like pure emergency.
Really? You think if where the chips fall is that all that happens is fewer and fewer people are Trinitarians, Paul isn't going to yank the chain on estuary?
No, I don't think so.
I thought estuary wasn't Paul's thing.
Oh. Don't get me started on Paul Watson.
He'd stop supporting it, probably.
Yeah, I think he would.
I mean, he's selective about what he supports now.
Yeah.
He just isn't as upfront about that as people seem to think. But, you know, and like, you should be selective about what you support. And that's kind of Jacob's point, is that, no, he has a line. He's not telling you where the line is or where the other lines are. And okay, that's happening. Like, I mean, you can deny that, but like the evidence is kind of out there. So like you can point to some videos if need be.
Yes, Dan.
Who's denying that? Like the conversation.
Like he says that all the time. He talks about this as though it's open conversations. It most certainly is not. That is not true. But we're open conversations. He'd equally support all of the channels that he enjoys or knows about or watches or whatever. And like I think the whole idea is dumb, right? Like I think open conversation is garbage anyway. So I support him.
Do you think
not
it's dumb, or
trying
do you
to
think it's
foster
impossible?
open conversations? But he says he is, and that clearly isn't happening. That's all.
Well, I don't understand. Well, is your critic that Paul is not as open as he claims to be?
Absolutely.
Paul is not as open as he claims to be.
Absolutely. We had this conversation last
said-
time with people confusing some people, maybe Jacob, maybe others, right, of doing something and expecting approval from Paul when that's the opposite of what happened, right? And just the flat out opposite of what happened.
Paul told me, do it and I will support you. And I
Right.
did it, and he hasn't supported me. Yes.
Emma, you're about to start a channel. What's your channel about? Just gonna side
Stories.
entire Paul conversation. Stories,
Excellent.
yeah.
It's about
Yeah.
stories and how they affect our view of the world. And I hope to do a lot of talking to particular people about particular stories they've read, heard, experienced, and how that has affected their, I don't know, understanding of the world or just them in general.
That sounds amazing. Can you put your channel in the link so we can start subscribing?
I don't have anything up yet. I don't even have my proper title card done yet. I'm waiting on my
Kaya,
friend.
what was the point of that?
The point of what?
We were talking about whether or not Paul is as open as he says he is, and you completely distracted to something else. Why?
Because this is a conversation that's been had multiple times on multiple streams, and we know where you stand, we know where Mark stands, and it's not going to be generative. So I wanted to start a more generative thread of conversation.
Oh, you're just pivoting? You're using me to pivot.
Yeah, I said that before I pivot. I said, Emma, I'm bored. I'm done with this. Let's move to Emma. But if you guys, Jacob, this is your channel. You decide what you want to talk about.
No,
So if you wanna-
look, the title of this is Action, and there's a reason why I did it through Fountain of Comfort, and I'm using my Fountain of Comfort brand, because I have decided that like spending endless amounts of hours talking about the same things over and over again is not worthwhile. And so I agree with you on that point of, yeah, it's not generative to discuss the same things over and over again. As long as we're all clear about those things, because dialogue and dialogos and logos do have a point, which is to clarify what we are doing and to help coordinate so that we are doing similar things. Now, what I want to see is in our community that people, first of all, I'm grappling with this because Rabbi Yitzchak left my server on the condition that Claire has to leave. He will not be on the same server with Claire. So I have to either ban her or he won't come back. And I am seriously considering banning her. I just don't have a
Close the bear fighting ring.
What's the hesitance? Oh, sorry, Emma.
What's the hesitance?
That was my question, but Emma had a different question.
Oh, it wasn't a question. It was an endorsement of closing the bear fighting ring.
Closing the bear fighting ring? Okay, I was actually thinking about it, so I guess I am going to close the bear fighting ring. But my whole point was up to now, I have nobody who is banned on my server, right? Everybody has their place in the hierarchy. And that may be the part in the hierarchy where I wonder, why are you even here, right? And Claire certainly is like, I mean, if you go to Jacob's Ladder, you see all the whole spectrum.
All the levels.
And all the levels, and she's as low as you can go. But I guess there is outer darkness, and Rabbi.
Build a wall.
See, I think at this point you're either enabling her in whatever unhealthy pattern she has going on that makes her engage with the people on your server when it's clearly never going to go anywhere, or you're enabling them to have just fruitless arguments and fritter away time with her.
I mean, I hope what I'm allowing people to do is recognize, oh, this is a worthless argument. I should stop being involved in it. And I thought that was a good reason to, yeah.
It can be, but some people might not learn. And I also don't think it's worth the cost of not having the rabbi.
Yeah, that is what several people have said. Yes.
Yeah, some people will play a game because they think they have to. And I actually ran into, I have a whole video on that on navigating patterns. I ran into somebody like that, and I was like, wait, what? And then she ended up moving out of New York City and going to Florida during the middle of the fake news virus scamdemic. And it was like her realization that I don't have to do what these people are doing. I just have to move. And she was going to lose her job anyway on conviction. So like some people just think there's a game, I have to play it, and I have to play it by the other person's rules, and they don't.
And I have to win by their rules.
Yeah, a lot of people have I have to win. I think that's independent, but yeah, it's a good point. Like that, those two things can come together a lot. I think a lot of people are just looking for place. Like they want to know my first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Like that's what I like about Jacob's system. Like, you know where you stand. And a lot of people, that's domicile. You don't know where you stand. Well, having a hierarchy means you know where you stand. And that helps to combat domicile. I'm thoroughly convinced of that. It's not the only factor, but I think it's a major factor. Like you need to know where you fit in. You don't need to be at the top, but you need to know where you are in relation to the top, because it just helps you feel more comfortable, because then you know what you're not responsible for. Because like it would be absolutely terrible right now to be responsible for the war in Ukraine. Like I don't want to be responsible for that, even a little bit. Like and I don't think I should be, because I don't see how it's possible. But
Mark, you're responsible because you have or have not put a Ukraine flag in your Twitter bio.
Exactly. See, some people are playing that very game, and it's hurting them, and I see it, and it's horrible to watch. Like it's just awful. Yeah.
I'm slow. How does that relate to Mark and Claire and Baninda?
Well, just having those boundaries and having Claire out there and Jacob counting on, see how silly her arguments are, you shouldn't play her game with her, is not a reliable way to get people to not engage, right? It's not that reliable.
That's why I keep calling it bear fighting.
Yes.
Because
good name. You're dead on that.
It reminds me of the Shakespearean, like Shakespeare era. Like you take a bear, I think you blindfold it maybe, and you put it in a ring and you have people fight the bear. And this was like hot entertainment. And something about it makes this situation feel like that. Maybe because it's like a potentially genuinely dangerous person. Like watered down to the point where she can't actually do anything now. And then you go in there and fight.
Yeah.
Okay,
I like that label. It's good.
Do I delete Mendacity or do I just kick Claire?
You could leave it for like a record, which would probably do roughly the same thing as talking to Claire.
Yeah, maybe. Example.
Okay, bye, Claire.
Yay. I don't know. I miss Claire. Then again, that brings out all my worst tendencies with all my best skills. It's a bad combination. That stream I did with I still like that stream. I'm still like, oh, that was so much fun. It was so much like the old days. Too much fun. I shouldn't have that much fun. Not healthy.
Yeah, I'm still not sure about Claire. But
well, she's gone now.
Well, she's gone from your channel, but I still speak to her quite regularly.
Well, I hope for the best things for her. There's a reason why I let her on my channel when her camera was on. Um, um, but Father Eric says Kairos moments today.
You know,
Yeah, I guess the limiting factor is once you spend enough time in mendacity that everyone's tired of you, you're gone.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a good rule.
Fair
I
enough.
like that sort of a rule.
that seems fair.
Yeah. I like
Maybe-
rules that are based on action.
Maybe
over time.
shift it to everybody within a certain level or something is tired of you. Because, like, I'm not sure Andrew would ever get tired of fighting.
Okay, by everyone being tired of you, being all of the people who are ranked higher than Jacob on Jacob's ladder. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
Nathan.
What do you have planned for your stories, Emma? Are you going to tell stories? Are you going to listen to other people's stories? How are you laying this out? Do you know yet?
I want to specifically do like talking about books. So like the first one is probably going to be a George MacDonald book that Philip and Corey and I have been reading. I need to figure out when Corey will be done and ready for that conversation. And then I need to work on like a lineup. I might also do like talking about what I've been reading lately. People would be interested. Just like go on there for like 10 minutes and just kind of talk about what I've been reading, what I've been thinking about. I'm still sort of figuring out exactly what it's going to be, but we'll see.
But story mainly in book form, not so much film.
I'm open to film and also video games. I just don't watch movies very much. I read a lot more. So I think about books before I think about movies.
Antonio had an idea for a new book club. I'm not sure if we're going to call it the Thomas Sowell Book Club. The first book is likely going to be Basic Economics. So I'm thinking maybe Elements of Knowledge Book Club. I don't know. What do you want to call it? Like fundamental basic subjects. And it'll be a nonfiction, basic facts types book club.
That sounds like a fun idea too.
So that was Antonio's idea. Now that I actually have a few seats on my StreamYard, I've been reconfiguring how, like, what the content on my channel is going to be. I may end up starting a separate StreamYard account for Fountain of Comfort if I can get actual mental health professionals to run things on the Fountain of Comfort channel. Colin.
I was going to say, you mean like my husband?
Yes. I've already prodded him about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was his first week of internship this semester. So this week was very busy for us. Once we settle into the new routine and know what kind of free time we have, it'll be more likely.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I mean, I have to figure out the setup of the Fountain of Comfort thing. The But ultimately, I mean, I think the past 4 or 5, maybe even 6 years of Peterson's sphere discussion has led to an idea that, hey, the mental health profession is important. The mental health profession is broken, and we are in a mental health crisis which needs to be addressed by professionals.
Yeah, yeah, that's certainly one of the things where Vicky points at as a marker for meaning crisis too. So yeah.
So
I'm
feel free to click on the link below and donate to Fountain of Comfort. For me, honestly, what's most important is actually like that people are willing to subscribe $5 $5 a month. When it comes down to it, I have put way more money into it than any money that's come in, and I have put way more time and money into it than I think I have any reasonable suspicion will actually come in. But when it goes down to the question of numbers, the number of people who are giving $5 a month to Fountain of Comfort, for me, that's a valid number. That's a solid number.
Good. That's great. I'm glad that's working out, at least satisfactorily, which is, well, fantastic.
Yeah, I mean,
most things fail. So
right
good for you.
now we have what, 10 people contributing monthly. Better than 0. But yeah. So for me, and actually I have been talking to some people about a Fountain of Comfort app, which would have CBT and stuff like that. Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what
Oh,
happens.
that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that it's working out,
It's working out okay.
making progress. So that's great.
No,
That's great.
and for me, it's a long-term thing, right?
Mhm.
This is
Yeah, it has to be.
not something that it's a long-term thing that, I mean, for me, actually a much bigger thing is Max decided to move to Los Angeles, and we have a little group of people here in Los Angeles who hopefully are forming a sort of community of support. And
Great.
that's offline. It's not.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm glad that's working out. That was really good. That was the stuff we tried to get going on the Vervaeke server, but snakes and all. So
Well, that happens. Yeah.
yeah. Well, most things fail. I mean, most things fail. Snakes or no, right? And you get a couple snakes, and then
Honestly,
really
one of
hard.
the biggest things about Rabbi Yitzchak is he's not only a rabbi with the type of ordination that I did not assume any rabbi with that type of ordination would ever end up on my server. I've compared it to something comparable to being a bishop. And he lives in Los Angeles. So yeah, before I made him the rabbi of my channel, I went and actually met him in real life. And
good.
It's so, I mean, we have something going on here.
Fantastic. It's good to hear. That's good news. I like it.
Okay, any final words before we land this plane, as Paul would put it?
Mark, how's Group Lectio Divina going, and do you think it could be a thing to share with Fountain of Comfort?
I mean, we'll see. Manuel's, I think, still working on the rewrite of the instructions and the renaming. We haven't made any progress on. We keep batting names back and forth, but yeah, we're getting there. Yeah, I'm hoping to get. I got to talk to Manuel again. He's been super busy, so I got to talk to him about where he is status wise. And Z and I have been going back and forth in the end. I wrote all the original instructions, right? And he's going in and editing them based on the fact that he's the one that's facilitated most of these practices. So he and I are going back and forth on, what's the best approach to write the instructions for this, right? Because we have 3 sets of instructions basically for the different levels of participation in the practice. So yeah, we're making progress on it. It is a little slower than I'd like, but thanks for asking. Yeah, that, and we got some other stuff coming too. We get the wisdom community document and stuff that made a lot of progress because Casey helped us, and so yeah, we're chugging along. We'll get there.
All right.
Thanks for asking.
Are we done? Kyle?
I'm
I
done.
think so.
Thank you, Jacob. Always a pleasure.
Good to see you all.